Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the presentation on navigating the school system, the education system. This is designed for anybody who has children, grandparents, the general public, and anyone who's interested in how our education system works and how to best obtain information from the system as your child or someone you know who may have children goes through from junior kindergarten up until the end of secondary school. So, did you know 90% of women in families make the educational decisions for their children? So it's critical that women obtain the best information possible for all of their needs and their abilities to answer and ask questions at a school, with a school board personnel, or with professionals and other people who do interventions with their children, or just in general to obtain more information, to be better informed as a parent, to help support your child in learning at home. So in Ontario, we have 4 education systems. We also have a large network of independent or private schools. Private schools are now also called independent schools, and those can have a variety of different from religious denominations to non-religious denominations, and have different purposes as well in different types of programming for children. There are more and more private schools designed for special needs children, sometimes because parents have found that it's difficult to obtain the services and support in the school where their child attends. There are definitely many, many options, and all of these options depend on what your background is, what your language preference is, value-based systems, and maybe proximity to your home, because it's always easier when our children go to school close to home. For different reasons, parents choose to send their children farther away. It might be for a special music or arts program. It might be for a special education system class, like a learning disabilities class. It might be just for a better opportunity for an international baccalaureate program in a high school. So there's a variety of reasons for movement within the system and to different schools. How do you navigate the system? One is to get informed. School board websites have good information as to what is going on in their system at the current time, as well as the different programs that they offer. So it's a good place to start with a school board and your local school. Communicate with school staff. So if you are having already children in the school system, it's very important that you communicate with school staff. The most important key factors is to document this communication, even if it's just a phone call. Teachers are very busy people. They have many, many things to do, and record keeping is better if it is taken on by the parent, so that you have a record of what to bring forward if something perhaps wasn't done, or as a reminder, or just for great record keeping and tracking for yourself. It's a good way to keep track of progress for your child, anything needs that come up, and it generates those questions that you might want to ask in the future. When you're asked to sign something by a school, always should request a photocopy. This is very important. You have a right to obtain a copy of whatever you put your signature forward to, and you need to have full understanding of what you've signed for your child, whether it's access to information or access to an individual to come in and observe your child in the classroom or in the school. There are many reasons why schools and school boards request your signature, and so it's very important that you keep a copy of what you've signed. Another important component of navigating the system is always to be able to ask questions. Your child is a very important source of information as to what goes on in the daily happenings of a school. Sometimes people say, well, you can't believe what a child says, but more than likely, children will give you a very good perspective of their own of what's happening in the school on a daily basis. School staff is helpful for information regarding communications. I realize right now we're in a time period where communication has been difficult with schools because of the struck work, the strike action of the teachers. But communication should still be ongoing and forthcoming from the school. Take personal notes. If you attend a meeting at the school, very important that you take notes down. This is for your own reference as well as for future reference if you need to go back and ask for clarification on something you may not have understood during your discussion. If you are attending important meetings such as IPRC and IEP meetings, if you have a special needs child, very important that you take someone with you. Those are legal proceedings. Those documents have legal vestiture, so it's important that you have someone with you who's taking notes, so that frees you up to ask all the important questions that you would like to know. So basically our education system, it functions for the average child. So whether your child is low performing, has special needs, has mild intellectual or developmental delays, or is very bright and gifted, all of those children need to be accommodated within the school system. So far, we have some flexibility. There have been many improvements in the school system, but for certain students, it might still not be enough. You as the parent is the best advocate for your child in the school system and directly with your school. If you are unable to get your teacher's email address, that is something that you are entitled to receive to communicate with the teacher. Observations that parents make to me as an education consultant is when I leave a message or when I write an email, they give me a phone call back. And that's okay, except that there's no track or no tracing of that information. And that's why I suggest that all communication be through email so that it can be traced and referenced for both parties. So school boards have an obligation to provide information about special education processes that are followed. These come from the Education Act, but these are all available to parents on the Ontario Ministry of Education website. And it's a good thing to read through the Act because school boards don't include all of the information that parents are entitled to receive with special education. Sometimes the information presented to parents is just very specific to what the school staff might know or what an internal consultant might know, but doesn't offer the range of information that is actually in the Education Act. So reading through the Education Act and the special education provisions of the Act is something that I recommend that all parents with special needs children do. Most importantly, the Identification, Placement, and Review Committees, those are the IPRC committee meetings. Those are legal proceedings to identify an exceptional child in the education system. It's kind of like an insurance policy that your child will not fall through the cracks, that they are legally entitled to support services in the school board, and it is a document that is filed in the official school record for the child in the school. The Individual Education Plan, or IEP, is a document that flows out of that meeting, and that is what details what kinds of services your child receives, what level of support, what programs they're following, what level of accommodation or modifications they might need in order to succeed. That is a working document and should not be a document that is then shelved for another year. It's a living, active, breathing document that should be referenced every 2 or 3 months with each new term in school, because depending, especially in high school, when students change classes and courses, the IEP needs to reflect those changes as well, and new accommodations might be more appropriate. So there are many parent organizations for students with dyslexia, intellectual disabilities, autism, lots of support groups out there, and I strongly encourage parents to find those support groups, join them. They offer more information to keep you informed, specific to what your child and his or her profile represents. Stay informed. That could be as much as there are many, many articles in the local news about students with special needs, how one may not or may have been accommodated. Keeping on top of news items, checking with the Ministry of Education website on new policies. These are all great ways to stay informed. I always recommend that parents have just a running list of questions that pop into your head, and then when you have 3 or more questions, then approach the school or the teacher and go seek those answers out. Sometimes answers will vary between the teacher, the school principal, the school board, and other individuals. So it's good to get a perspective of different opinions from different individuals and professionals outside of the school system as well. Where we are at today in the public education system, which includes the Catholic education system, support services are consultative. There's no one-on-one therapy for children. These are consultative support services that parents can request from the school board, and school board personnel like consultants who will come in and help them as teachers provide for this child. They may or may not see the child individually, and if they do, it'll be every 4 to 6 weeks approximately. So if the child needs intensive therapy or treatment, it's still best to go to the private sector because time is of the essence in early intervention and therapy and treatment. We know that the longer that conditions are left unmonitored or untreated or undiagnosed, the more difficult it will be for the child or the youth to continue in their studies, and then they may become at risk of dropping out later if their needs are not met, falling through the cracks in the system. So where we were 20 years ago in education, we're in a much better place right now. Ottawa is the best place in Canada to educate your child. We have a wide range of special education programs in our public education system. Part of the reason for that is because we have a children's hospital in Eastern Ontario is located here in Ottawa. By default, because these hospitals are located here, there will be a lot of supporting and auxiliary services provided for special needs children. So Ottawa is a great place to educate your child, to find some of the best programs. Are they easy to find? Not necessarily. So sometimes you have to go and dig and find more information on specific programs because there is not a concerted effort to link everybody and what they offer. Many great programs are offered by parent organizations and not school boards or private providers. And so tapping into all of the different networks is really what gives your child a holistic advantage to succeeding in the education system. So French immersion, for example, is offered in a large proportion of schools in Ottawa where it might not be in other parts of Ontario or Canada. It's fairly accessible. Classroom integration, we have developmentally delayed children and mild intellectually delayed children in regular classrooms when they start primary, junior level. However, their needs might change, and as learning accelerates with age, they might find that they are more suited to be in a special congregated class for their particular need. So those are called system classes. Have learning disability classes. You'll have a special needs, primary, junior, intermediate for learning disabilities or for autism. And those are programs where the teachers are trained to deal specifically with those students, and levels of support are a little bit higher there, and the student-teacher ratio is smaller. Semi-integration, we see this through middle and high school, where some of the children will attend with their homeroom class for some periods of the day and then attend a special grouping of children for the rest of the day. So that's also an option. Co-op education in high school. Cooperative education is workplace experience for high school students where they can actually go and work with an employer and they receive credit for it at the high school on their official transcript. So they can do up to 6 credits in co-op education, or 8 credits. They can be out for an entire semester out of the school, and this is a great option for those youth who are disengaged with learning because they are still getting credit for learning, but they're not physically in the school building and they're learning in a different way. Dual credits is similar. Dual credits means that high school students can take a college level course or a university course while they're still attending high school and get a high school credit and a university or college credit at the same time. So lots of great opportunities as kids move up through the system, but you have to know that they exist and you have to ask about them. So transitions are key and critical for success for students in the education system, starting from a very young age, whether they have been at home attending daycare or preschool. There's a transition that happens, and preparing the child for that transition by visiting the new place, by talking about it, by having pictures of the new place is very helpful. It reduces stress and anxiety. When they go from junior kindergarten, they may have been in a small daycare and suddenly now they're in a class of 30 in junior kindergarten. Even though there's a teacher and an educational assistant, it's still a big change. From grade to grade, students experience a certain amount of loss at the end of June because they have finished a grade and they're going on to a new grade, and there's always some trepidation starting a new grade because there's a new teacher, a new classroom. So there's lots of new elements and factors for children to gauge. Between divisions, so primary division is junior kindergarten to grade 3, Junior division is grade 4 to grade 6. Intermediate division is grade 7 to 10. And the senior division is grade 11 and 12. Transitioning to a new school, that could be very eventful for a child, very anxiety provoking. So visiting the school, meeting teachers, and receiving information from the new school to share with the child or the youth is helpful. So from a system class to reintegration in a regular classroom, and that one happens when students go from a learning disabilities classroom at the elementary level and into secondary school, because all of a sudden they're back in the mainstream. So it's very important for them to have in their timetables a class where they can just go and receive additional support and guidance, and those are called learning support credits, and they don't lose out any time or any credits by doing that, and it's great for transitions. From high school to post-secondary studies, many students take a gap year after high school. They've been in school since the age of 4. So when they reach the age of 18, some students need a break, and that's called a gap year. So they take a year to work, volunteer, travel, and then maybe decide from that point forward where they would like to go. From school to the job market, some students will finish high school and enter the job market, especially if they've done cooperative education. Some of them may be after post-secondary. One of the items that I mentioned to parents is that if their child doesn't know what they want to do after high school, sending them to university just to take a bunch of courses is not really very helpful anymore. Employers don't really look for an education degree for a general degree. If they want to go into law or education or a profession, absolutely. But if they don't know what they want to do, it's better for them to take some time and do some exploration, and it's far cheaper on the family budget. So when you're navigating the school system, it's very important that you have a support system. It can be through your family doctor, specialist doctors, clinical staff, and other professionals, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, audiologists. All of these people on this list are there to help you and guide you. The decision making still is up to the parent. You need to take as much information in as possible from a variety of sources and base your decision on how informed you've become. Making decisions based on one professional's opinion is sometimes very narrow and can be detrimental, whether it's just the school's information, just a doctor's information. So very important to get a wide source of opinion and suggestion. Family members, if you have them close by, friends, especially parents of similar profile children if you have special needs, and that's through the parent associations. Very strong support there. If you have any questions, I would be pleased to answer them. The booth is right next to the stage. Please come and visit me, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much. Have a great day and enjoy the show.